Welcome to the story of one of America's most legendary frontiersmen, David Crockett. In the lawless and untamed lands of the wild frontier, he was a masterful hunter, an unrivaled scout, and a true leader to his people. His name became a legend long before he ever set foot in the halls of power. His courage was truly legendary, a force of nature in its own right. With only his rifle in one hand, he single-handedly confronted and fought against the most fearsome wild beasts of the forest. He wrestled bears into submission, survived the unforgiving wilderness, and became a living symbol for all who called this rugged land their home. But he was more than just a hero. He was a larger-than-life legend woven into the very fabric of American folklore. His incredible stories spread by word of mouth from cabin to cabin, turning into powerful epics and rousing songs. To the people, he was, without a doubt, the true king of the frontier. Yet the wilderness was not his only battleground. Driven by a deep sense of duty and a desire to fight for his family's future, he journeyed to Washington. In the deceptive world of politicians, he felt like a complete stranger, a simple man in a complex place. He was, and always would be, the authentic voice of the common people. His life revealed a profound internal conflict, a constant struggle between his identity as a hero of the people and his role as a politician. While he was a beloved symbol of the people he represented, he quickly became a controversial and often criticized figure in the formal political world. But his legacy, in the end, is most deeply remembered by his ultimate sacrifice. As Alamo/his last warrior, he fearlessly fought for the independence of Texas and gave his life for the cause he believed in. The story of David Crockett is an unforgettable epic of unwavering courage, profound sacrifice, and an enduring fight for freedom. David heeded the urgent call of the people and embarked on a journey to be their voice in the nation/his capital. The common folk, who saw him as one of their very own, sent him off to Washington filled with genuine hope for their future. They trusted him to speak for them. Wearing his iconic fur hat and his familiar hunter/his attire, he made his way into the polished world of politicians. He was determined to maintain his authentic identity, even in the elegant and often judgmental halls of Washington. He refused to change for anyone. The building stood tall, a towering symbol of power and status built from white marble. But the question remained, how truly far was this grand monument from the simple, honest values that David Crockett so proudly represented? When David Crockett arrived at Congress, this bright and ornate world immediately branded him as an outsider. His worn clothes and rustic appearance stood in stark contrast to the luxurious silk and velvet surrounding him. He was a man of the forest, suddenly lost among a sea of tailored suits. Amidst this breathtaking splendor, David couldn't help but feel small and profoundly alone. His signature fur hat, which had once been a powerful symbol of his strength and identity, now seemed to be nothing more than a glaring mark of his incompatibility with the political elite. But among the people, the real David Crockett shone. His gripping stories and wild tales made his listeners roar with laughter and their hearts swell with pride. He radiated in the humble taverns, once again becoming a hero to his people, a man who belonged to them and understood their struggles. With his fur hat and hunter/his jacket, he remained the center of attention even in the most formal of these gatherings. The captivating stories he told about the frontier, of bears and wild adventures, managed to bring a genuine smile to everyone/s face, bridging the gap between two very different worlds. When he took the podium in Congress, he spoke not only with his powerful words but with his fearless demeanor and his unwavering sincerity. His simple, heartfelt style was a stark contrast to the practiced speeches of his colleagues, and it both surprised and deeply impressed the other members of Congress. In a remarkably short time, David Crockett transformed from a frontiersman into a national folk hero. His bold caricatures were published widely in newspapers, and his incredible stories were being told everywhere. He had truly become the untamed and independent spirit of America. This was the absolute peak of his fame and influence. He had become a figure who was not only loved but deeply respected and applauded by the people. Everyone, from the simplest farmer to the most sophisticated city dweller, saw him as a genuine American hero. However, a single devastating decision threatened to end his popular rise: the Indian Removal Act. This controversial law would forcibly and cruelly remove Native Americans from their ancestral lands. David Crockett, guided by his moral compass, immediately and vocally opposed it. The immense power behind this cruel law was none other than President Andrew Jackson himself. Jackson was a determined leader, resolute in his conviction to do anything for the perceived benefit of his own people. But David Crockett, with his different moral convictions, believed this was a step too far. Crockett stood fearlessly against this terrible law and spoke with a booming, defiant voice in Congress. He knew this decision would very likely jeopardize his entire political career, but he chose to follow his conscience and do what he believed was morally right, regardless of the consequences. David truly understood the profound suffering of the Native Americans and felt their pain as if it were his own. He stood not only with his own countrymen but with all who were oppressed, fighting for the justice they deserved. The cost of this courageous decision was incredibly high. Jackson's loyal political supporters immediately turned their backs on him, abandoning him in the corridors of power. This once popular and celebrated man became a solitary and isolated figure, alone in his convictions. These vast, empty hallways, once filled with people eager to hear his stories, now reflected his complete loneliness and profound disappointment. His fur hat, a symbol of heroism and independence, had now become a painful sign of his exclusion from the political world. The new lines and deep wrinkles on his face were undeniable proof of the immense pain and suffering he had endured. He had shouldered the heavy burden of fame and the crushing loneliness that came with standing alone against the current. The Capitol, a majestic monument, was once the place where he had brought his dreams of a better life for his people. But now, this cold and somber building served only as a painful reminder of his political defeat and his disillusionment with the system. He lost the election. The very people who had once cheered for him as a hero had now abandoned him in his moment of need. The deep disappointment on David's face was not hidden. It was clearly visible for all to see, a stark symbol of his political downfall. The profound weariness and deep sadness etched onto his face told the entire story. He felt as if he had lost more than just an election. He felt as though he had lost everything he had ever believed in, his trust in the system, and his hope for the future. It was now time to leave Washington for good. He was returning to his true home, to the familiar wilderness of the frontier. For him, this was not a defeated retreat but a meaningful return to his roots, to the land that had made him who he was. Snow was gently falling as he rode away. Alone and weary, he was leaving the very city he had once dreamed of changing. But deep in his heart, he knew his fight was not over. His defiant spirit still continued to push him forward. He pressed on through the cold and snow-covered forests of Tennessee. His face was flushed red from the biting wind, and the white strands in his beard were proof of the wisdom and experience he had gained. He pressed on tirelessly, never looking back. The profound feeling of loneliness surrounded him like a second skin. But even within this solitude, he was actively searching for a new path, a new purpose. He was a frontiersman, and frontiersmen, by their very nature, would never and could never give up. And a sudden, brilliant light appeared on the horizon. It was not just a simple ray of sunlight. It was a clear herald of a new beginning and an entirely new, different struggle for him. His destiny was calling him, and he was heading for Texas. When he finally arrived in the vast and barren lands of Texas, he knew with absolute certainty that a new and final war awaited him. He was determined to fight for freedom, for a cause greater than himself. This was his last chance to be the hero he always was. Tired and dusty from his long journey, he entered the humble gates of the Alamo mission. This was the last refuge for the freedom fighters of Texas. He had come to join them, not as a politician, but as a warrior ready to fight to the bitter end. The Texan rebels welcomed him with overwhelming joy and respect. They saw him not just as a man, but as a national hero and a living legend, and they were more than ready to fight side by side with him. In the Alamo, Crockett had finally returned to where he truly belonged. The final stand of the Alamo had begun, a desperate and heroic last effort. He stood alone and defiant against the overwhelming force of hundreds of soldiers. This was not merely a battle. It was one man, // 2019's final, courageous struggle for the core values he had believed in his entire life. Every single blow, every desperate cry, and every moment of resistance reflected his unwavering determination and his absolute resolve. He fought heroically to his last breath. This was not just a heroic death. It was the birth of a legend that would forever be etched into the very soul of the American people. When the battle finally ended, he was still standing, a silent testament to his incredible strength. But he no longer had the strength to fight any further. He was defeated as a warrior, but in his final stand, he became forever immortalized as a powerful and enduring symbol of American courage. The final expression on his face was a complex and powerful mix of utter defeat and glorious triumph. He would be remembered as a controversial figure in history, a politician who defied the powerful, but he would also be remembered as a legendary frontiersman forever etched into the heart of a nation. He was neither a simple politician nor merely a hunter. He was, in fact, the complex and fascinating embodiment of both. In every moment of his extraordinary life, he existed in two vastly different worlds and left an indelible mark on each of them. The enduring story of David Crockett is the powerful tale of a man's search for his own true identity, his ultimate sacrifice for his people, and his eternal rise to become a symbol of the untamable American spirit. He will forever be remembered, not just as a politician or a frontiersman, but as the one true king of the frontier.